The Mackinac Policy Conference, which is coming up right after Memorial Day. And for the 7th straight year, Detroit Public Television will carry the entire conference live online with nightly specials from the Grand Hotel. So you'll get an idea of what the state's biggest influencers are talking about when it comes to the future of Michigan. I spoke with Detroit Regional Chamber CEO Sandy Barua and Conference Chair Ray Talang about the conference pillars this year, which is trust, is Michigan prepared, and the mobility disruption.
We're talking about the regulatory and policy environment that is going to be necessary for Michigan and the United States to continue to be in the leadership position regarding next generation mobility in the connected vehicle. So we know that the technology hurdles are huge, but we're handling them. Kind of how society adapts to self-driving cars will be another challenge. But one of the unsung challenges is how are we going to adapt our policy environment and our insurance and our regulatory environment.
There's a long road ahead of us too, and a couple of the critical issues that you'll hear about on the island will be focused in those areas of education. For the first time, I'm a lifelong Detroiter, and for the first time in my professional career, the business community has rallied around the fact that we need to do something that's really different in K through 12 in order to change the outcomes that we're achieving, given some of the more recent test results that we're seeing today. So K through 12 education is a critical, infrastructure will be critical, and then continuing to focus on the state's finances. All of these critical elements that want us to live, work, and play here in the state cost money, and having the ability and having the right strategies to finance it and fund it will be critical as well.
He had a question.
I think it's really interesting, and they set the pillars and obviously have the panels around those on the main stage, but I always find it interesting to talk about what the conversation is off the main stage at the Mackinac Policy Conference. And really, I think it's a time every year to step back and say, where are we as a state, and what are the most important things that we're talking about? So Nolan, I'm going to ask you for your top 3 discussion points that's been happening up on the island this year.
Well,
Stephen just said few, so I can think of my 3 while you're going ahead.
No, you look at both the agenda and some of the side things that are going on up there. Education, workforce training, very key conversations. Every day there are education issues that will be explored. Business leaders are planning on engaging up there with some of the education advocacy and reform groups. Education is going to dominate. I think you're going to see a lot of side discussion about the RTA, the regional bus system. They won't have that worked out by the time they get to Mackinac, and I think once they get up there, if they don't have a deal, that's getting awfully late. It's almost, and so the discussion has to turn to what do we do next? Where do we go over these next 2 years so we don't end up in the same place 2 years ago?
2 years from now?
They can't give up.
All right, so you got education 1, RTA 2, 3. I'm going to throw in politics there.
I was going to say politics, elections, right?
Stephen, I just did your work for you.
Yeah, right. Elections for sure, and these nasty fights that are taking place on both sides of the political spectrum and the governor's race.
So if you think if Schuette and Kelly run into each other in the Audubon bar,
in the Geranium bar,
you think we'll see a welterweight bout going on in there?
It would definitely be welterweight.
That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a while since we had this kind of rancor on both sides of the political spectrum in a gubernatorial year. So that'll I think will play out pretty robustly.
And I think it's very interesting too, because you do have the business leaders of the state and heads of foundations that are going to sit back and take a look at who's the next leader of Michigan going to be, and what kind of direction are they going to be taking in terms of policy
and maybe
regulation.
Maybe we'll catch a glimpse of Debbie Stabenow, who's running for re-election in Senate. We haven't seen her in this state.
Well, who's running against her?
I think
she's
she's expected to be up there.
I mean,
she's got a pretty good skate there.
If you're in a re-election campaign, you should at least show up for that.
She'll be there.
She'll definitely
The other thing that these years tend to be on Mackinac is, I mean, this is the last year of Rick Snyder's term. This will be his swan song. He started out as somebody who really embraced the Mackinac experience as a way to announce big things and get big stuff done. The bridge got done, I think, the first year.
Yeah, RTA got done the next year. On and on.
So how does he approach this year, you know, given how things have changed over 8 years?
Exactly.
You know,
so that and then Detroit and the entire bankruptcy process. Flint. I mean, all of these things have played out.
Up there.
But, you know, it's not, the last year or so for governors in their term up there, it's never as, I mean, Granholm didn't come the last 2 years.
No, she didn't, that's right.
And it certainly wasn't as celebratory for John Engler in his last year appearance there as it was, you know, in his initial. There's a little looking beyond going on, if you will.
Well, of course, we will be up there, and Detroit Public Television will carry it all for you, so make sure you find us online, MiWeek.org, and you can see us every night at 7:30 then when we are up there.